right. Skip, thank you very much. I appreciate that kind introduction. My job tonight is really just going to be to keep the trains running on time. If we could have our two distinguished guests come on out, I want to introduce Mary Madeline. She hails from Illinois. You guys coming? All right. Let's give them a round of applause. Mary was raised in Illinois, where she cut her teeth in local and state politics before her rise to national prominence. She worked for the Republican National Committee and has had roles with both Bush presidential campaigns, having served as an assistant to President George W. Bush and counselor to Vice President Dick Cheney in that administration. She's the first White House official to hold that double title. Mary has an extensive background in media as an analyst, a contributor, and has hosted a number of talk shows. She's the author of a book, Letters to My Daughter, which hopefully we'll talk a little bit about tonight. She's also co-authored the book, All's Fair, Love, War, and Running for President, with our other distinguished guest tonight, Mr. James Carville. James Carville, the Ragin' Cajun, is the oldest of 8 children and was actually born in Fort Benning, Georgia. He grew up in Louisiana and graduated from LSU with undergraduate and law degrees before entering the U.S. Marine Corps. After a 2-year stint, he practiced law with a Baton Rouge law firm for nearly 6 years before turning his attention to full-time politics. And before he became legendary with the Bill Clinton for President campaign, James scored several major political victories as a consultant with his partner, Paul Begaglia. He helped elect Bob Casey, governor of Pennsylvania, and helped bring Harris Wofford back from a 40-point deficit to win the Pennsylvania Senate seat in 1991. He also helped get Zell Miller elected governor of Georgia, a premeditated action for which he'll have to answer for at some point in his life. Thank you all for being here, and welcome back to Little Rock and to Little Rock. We're glad to have you. It will be. I think you just have to talk into it. There you go.
Can you hear us? Okay, before I get started, Mary is uninitiated to the joys of SEC football. And just to make a home, could somebody please give her a suey pig? All right.
Okay, that's a little bit then. Who dat? Who dat? I still don't know what who dat means, but it's fun to do. Who dat? Congratulations.
It's really,
wannabe.
Who dat? Who dat? Who dat say they're going to beat them Saints? Who dat?
You guys had a little fun with the Saints this past weekend. Mary was telling me a little story earlier that, James, you went to bed before she did. Can we get a little recap of what happened with the Redskins game this past week?
Well, we did the CNN, the John King State of the Union. We went out to RFK, and you know, in sports, sometimes you deserve to win and you win, and sometimes you just win. And we just won. It was a remarkable game, but no, they're 12-0, and what it means to that city is just hard to imagine. That everything just by way of, on the Monday night game when they played New England, the rating in the city of New Orleans for the game was like a 68. I mean, that's 68% of all of the television. It's been a very, and people here in Arkansas can understand that. When you go through something, when people say that sports don't count, it's because they don't understand what it means and what this club means for this city.
And I did grow up with the Bears, so I'm not uninitiated to football. So But I got to fly in with the team. You have not lived till you've flown in with Shockey in his suit. I love this tradition. Mr. Benson makes them dress in a suit to fly. Remember, we used to get dressed up to fly. So that was fun. And the night before, we had the Bensons over and. Okay. How about this? Summertime. I was saying the night before we had the Bensons over in Donna, Brazil, a good Democrat, and Donna and I stayed up doing Who Dat stuff long after James went to bed, which I think he used as a competitive advantage the next day on CNN. It's great stuff.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some things that are happening in current events, but I thought this audience would love to hear a little bit more about kind of what goes on at the Madeline Carville household, too. Just kind of how you guys live with each other, being as competitive as you are. I mean, everybody sees you all every week on camera debating different current political events, but tell me when you guys aren't on stage in front of a couple thousand people or you're not in front of a TV camera, kind of what's a routine, mundane day in the life of your household?
Routine to the extent that when we're home, 6 o'clock I get up and I make coffee, I go and I get the papers, I get the kids up at 6:30, I feed the kids, I take them to school, I let them off, I generally go get a little breakfast and read the paper, then I go and get her a grande quad, one Splenda latte. I take it back and I put it by her bed so when she gets up, she has her coffee. And then I might do my sports radio show, and then she'll get up and send me out to get something else, and then I'll go out and I'll get something else. And then maybe we'll go to lunch and then come back and she'll go in the office and go on the computer and listen to Rush Limbaugh. And I'll go back out and pick up the kids or whatever I got to do. And I'll run some more errands. It's really fun, you understand? And then I'll get the kids and we'll come back, and then they will tell me what are we going to do for dinner, and when whatever they say we're going to do for dinner, then I'll do for dinner, and then they'll study, and I'll go in Audubon Park and run, and that's pretty much the way it goes around there. And whatever I do, I'm just told. Whenever I'm told to do something, and I kind of do it. And people say, well, what do you argue about? It takes two people to argue. If one person is just agreeing and running errands all day, there's really nothing to argue about.
Here's a concept, martyr complex. I don't know, well, yeah. I mean, is that how you see your life?
No, it's wonderful.
It is true.
I love going to the hardware store and into the drugstore and picking up stuff. And
hardware is not his middle name. If there's any mechanical thing that needs to be done around the house, come on, admit it. I do the plumbing, I do all of that.
But I pick up the stuff.
I do. If I draw a little picture of a screwdriver, he can find one. But we love living in New Orleans, and nothing is mundane about living in a community that you love, that is working so hard to preserve and extend its heritage. We hope you all get to come and visit. We love having our girls there. I love having the girls away from what was becoming a toxic environment in Washington. No fault of their own. They were caught in the whipsaw between the two of us, but and neither one of them are political. One's a crazy leftist, bohemian Buddhist, and the other one's a saint, mine. But we talked to lots of folks beforehand. If you have kids, and particularly you have teenage girls, there is nothing mundane. You've got a 2-year-old girl, you're coming up on it. And what James does is, I don't just start with Rush. I start with Glenn Beck, then I go to Rush, then I go to Sean, then I turn on Fox News Fair and Balanced. And then, so he goes in his room, he has his whole separate room, and none of my animals or my children or anything is allowed in that football sports kind of room, and that's how we do that. All this errand running, you must be having another wife somewhere that I'm not acquainted with.
Now, you mentioned that you guys just kind of moved back to New Orleans in a while, but that's where you all met and got married, is it not? Wait, I want to hear the story of the courtship.
You tell that. You tell. If I say the wrong thing, it'll be bad.
We just had our 16th anniversary. We didn't meet in New Orleans. I loved New Orleans before I knew James. I'll confess to having stalked James because he was winning all these races in red states. We didn't call them red states then. And my mission as chief of staff of the Republican National Committee was to know the enemy. The chairman then was a big devotee of Sun Tzu and Attila the Hun, and I had to read all these war things, and you're supposed to know the enemy. So I wanted to meet this guy, and completely professional. I had another boyfriend, and so he calls me and he goes, "Meet me at my apartment, sugar." Said, I don't think so, but so we kind of went back and forth, and I did meet him at a bar, and I was instantly enchanted with sugar, river, just all that. She completely bowled me over, and as he would tell it, I said, "You will marry me or I will leave." I don't remember that part of it, but what happened?
Well, we met in January of '91, and then I went to Pennsylvania. And to make a long story short, I moved to Little Rock in the summer of 1992. And my routine was because we're in the old Arkansas Democrat Gazette building over there. It's a school now. And I lived in the Capitol Hotel and would run every day. I'd take off and go on the other side of the road. It's a beautiful ballpark, and, they'd built since then, but very sort of nostalgic. And every night I would call her. She was working in the Bush campaign. And it just, when I come back here and run in front of the old state capitol, and there's so much emotion built up here anytime that I come back to Little Rock, and just the fondness that I remember my time here and the friends that I made. And who would have ever thought that Skip would be Dean Rutherford, like Dean, the Dean. And, but he has good sense to send his daughter to Tulane, where I'm on the faculty. Of course, my chief qualification to be on the faculty of Tulane is I flunked out LSU.
And it took him 11 years to do that.
And then after I came back, we got married in New Orleans, Thanksgiving Day, 1993.
Now, Mary admitted that she became enchanted with you in that first encounter. How long was it for you before you knew you were in love and going to ask her to marry you?
If you look like me and you go out with her, just kind of figure it out, Y'all been following this Tiger Woods thing? Oh, somebody said that. A friend of mine said that woman, his wife was a 19. She was a 10 with a 9-iron.
We don't talk politics. He talks Tiger Woods. He can talk Sarah Palin. He can't stop talking about Sarah Palin. He just likes to conjure up the image of Sarah Palin.
But we do a lot of stuff. In New Orleans, you never run out of things you can do. So like we're having a book party for Walter Isaacson, who's a good friend of ours, and Thursday night, and then it'll be nice. The holiday's coming up. It's good. The kids are kind of excited, and be fun.
Well, you mentioned your daughters, Maddie and Emma, and I'm told that they have exhibited some political leanings. So which one's right, which one's wrong?
Well, we're always wrong, right? If
Right,
you have
yeah.
kids, here's what they've learned from us. They take the opposite side of whatever we say. They're the opposite of it. But we don't. You know, you want what you want for your kids. People think we indoctrinate them. It is true that I do take half their babysitting money and say that's confiscatory taxation, and I know how to spend it better than you. So those are teaching moments. No, we don't indoctrinate them, and they really don't. They've grown used to it, but they don't like when people come up to us and express their opinions or ask our opinions. And one time somebody, I don't remember what phase this was in, but there's not been a dull moment in the last 20 years. Somebody came up to James. We were on vacation, and the kids were kind of little, but old enough to know what was going on. Some woman came up to him on the beach in Hawaii and started choking him. It was really kind of scary. And I said, I feel your pain, but, you know, take your hands off the man. But, you know, we're blessed that they can go to good schools and they can see the impact of public service and citizen activism right in their own backyard and community service, and they do it, and they're not, our kids, y'all have kids, the kids really are, they're really inspiring, not just our kids, but this generation of young people is really, really inspiring, and so much of what's getting done in our hometown, and I bet here too, is at the hands of kids. They really got a practical, idealistic, inspiring, energetic, hands-on worldview, and it's not partisan, I don't think.
Well, I tell you, talking about young people, we met and took a picture with the class at the Clinton School. I mean, these are some amazing young people. I mean, what goes through here is really, really, really something. But the only people that ask us if we like getting our children to vote a certain way are people that have never had children. Because people that have had children know you can't get a kid to close a door. How are you going to get them to vote somewhere? I mean, the idea that somehow or another the oracle father would sit there and say, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to be for, this is not the way the world works. You know, my oldest daughter is like, I was noticing she'd ask me for money and I never get change. And I said, Maddie, you're giving...
I taught her that.
I said, Maddie, you're giving this money to other kids. And she said, yeah. I mean, she's very... And my youngest daughter is... She's all... and sometimes you wonder, you know, for people that believe that anybody that's had two kids doubts the whole genetic thing, because how could two people have the same mom and daddy and be so damn different? You know?
Well, Mary, you grew up in Illinois, and I was looking through some of your background. You have a law degree, and I was surprised to find out, were you a homecoming queen one year? You don't strike me as the pageant type.
By accident.
By
I'm not the
accident.
homecoming queen. This was actually my first political event. And you know, politics is all around us. I didn't want to be the homecoming queen. Your class nominates you. My sister was a freshman, and she was all into it, so she got all the freshmen. And my boyfriend was a senior, and he got all the seniors. And the rest of the vote split, and I won. No one was more surprised than I, and I've been trying to live it down ever since. Although I think James likes the whole homecoming queen thing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
He's a psycho.
Well, what got you interested in politics? How did you get your first break in your first race?
And if there are young people here, I of the many things we do agree on, and which you don't see us publicly doing, we do agree on politics and public service being a noble calling, and we are both very proud of what we've done, who we've been privileged to work for, and it's a great, not just education, it's a great profession for young people. And I was, how I got into it was I'm a, second wave feminist, and in those days, you know, politics, if anybody has worked in it, it's the most egalitarian, merit-based thing. If you can do the job, you can have the job, and you can excel. And I could do it, and I didn't want to go through those, this is a pre-feminist stage. I didn't want to be a hairdresser, which I am a hairdresser. I did go to hairdressing school. Don't hold this against me. I'm cutting my own hair. But I had a class in college, and Dean, and students, we had to do, it was called campaigns and elections, and you had to go work on a campaign, and they didn't have, in a campus of 17,000 kids, there were 11 Republicans, so the professor said, you either to be a Republican or you can't, you can't have this. And I, strangely, once I picked a side, because I grew up as a Democrat on the south side of Chicago, Kennedy Democrat, and it was, my first job was the back, any Republicans here in Lincoln Day Parade, the back end of an elephant, and I was enchanted from then on. And it is, I'll say, again, I'm still at the back end of something I don't know here, but if any of you kids get a chance to work on a campaign at any level, it's a truly all-in exciting thing. It really is.
Yeah, in Louisiana, in Senator Pryor, I saw him earlier. I think he said his wife wasn't feel good. He knows more about sort of, Senator Pryor, the senior, knows more about sort of Louisiana politics and back in those days and stories and everything. And when I grew up, politicians were really kind of entertaining people. I mean, it was part of what we didn't expect just to, we were entertained more than we were governed in Louisiana. And as it's been said, half the state is under indictment, the other half is underwater. I mean, and I was a young, I'm 65 now, and at a fairly young age, like high school, I just sort of looked around and decided that black folks were not getting a very good deal, and so I kind of took, that's how I sort of started out. And when I went to LSU, we helped organize the College Democrats at Southern, which is historically the black university in Baton Rouge, and then kind of evolved, and I was actually working for the mayor in Baton Rouge, and the circumstances were such that I thought it was in my best interest to leave town, and got a job, believe it or not, running a campaign in Virginia, and then sort of took off and did this and that, and when I obviously met up with President Clinton, and sometimes we kind of laugh at, maybe we weren't in the same womb sometimes, that we just had the kind of similar, grew up during the kind of civil rights stuff, and then, in the politics. And I've always, in Mary and I've always been, people always ask me this. And, I'd rather be married to somebody, in just my nature, to somebody who is passionate about something, albeit different than I am, than someone who is passionate about nothing and just sort of agrees to sort of say agreement. I mean, I've never gone much for the kind of Magnolia and Moonlight kind of female anyway. I mean, oh my goodness, whatever you say, Eddie.
His family, he has 5 sisters. They were so happy when he brought me home. One of the sisters said, "You're the first girl that was of statutory age that he's brought home." So I could have been a Magnolia, I could have been anything, but I was of age, so that's... Sorry.
Counselor, I'll let you refute that if that's not true, so.
He can't.
Look, I was 49 before I got married. And all that, but then I only been married once. And I'm glad I was the best decision I ever made in my life. But I had a good time. I think I better shut up.
Yeah. I think we should move to another topic to save you from a long ride home. I would like to hear the story too, James, if you wouldn't mind sharing too. I want to hear about your first encounter with Bill Clinton. When you first met him, the first conversation you had, what persuaded you to jump on board with his campaign?
When Senator Wofford made the big kind of comeback and became sort of, Paul Begala and I were working together, and everybody had run for president. We talk, and the different people running for president of the Democratic Party. And it has been said of President Clinton, and I believe it is true, that he could talk a dog out of a pork chop. I don't know why that's one of my favorite. and you know it's true. And I just sort of remember saying, man, this guy's like on another level, you know? I mean, because I've seen a lot of people in politics, and just in his ability to relate to people, particularly, you know, you're going to relate to another guy roughly your age from the same part of the world, and, you know, it was kind of one of these things that was just destined, I think. And I don't want to get, you know, over sappy about it, but it was really one of the remarkable things that ever happened to me in my life. And, you know, very few people get a chance to do what Mary and I have been able to do. And don't think for one day that both of us aren't just grateful every minute that we had the opportunity to do the things that we've done and meet the people we have. And I feel like that after all of that, it was really kind of destined that we would move to New Orleans and try to help out down there, because we've been so fortunate to work for people that we genuinely respect, we genuinely love, and to be in the arena of American politics, which we both really care about. And I always, and I want to go back to these young people that are at the Clinton School. And one guy, I asked, what do you want to do? And he said, I'm going to go work for Habitat for Humanity, spend the last 3 summers in New Orleans. And I asked another young man, what are you going to do? He says, I'm going to go be president of Egypt. So I kind of like the diversity of ambition in there.
Now, do you want to hear my story of how he hooked up with President Clinton?
I would love to hear
There's a little bit different memory of this. We had been dating, and it was a terrible year. I was chief of staff, as I mentioned, to Lee Atwater, who had brain cancer, a pregnant wife, 3rd kid, and died within a year, and horribly so. And I meet the Raging Cajun here, which was not well received amongst my people, except for cool people. And then he ups and moves to Pennsylvania, and then he comes home and he says he's done with all this, and by this time I am a certifiable right-wing nut, proud of it, and I get chosen to be on the Bush campaign, my dream job. He says, don't worry, I'm not going to do anything. And he's had met with all the candidates, and he goes out with the pork chop stealing from a dog guy, and I hear nothing about it, nothing, and I think it's all fine, and I'm going to do my job. I don't know what he's going to do. We go out to dinner with Mandy Grunwald and a reporter, and Mandy starts saying, oh, you're going with Clinton. What? So it says, I hear about it from a reporter and Mandy Grunwald at Ricky's. I literally had to get up and throw up, and I did, and yeah, And then he moved to Little Rock, and I didn't see him. And so many times on that campaign, when he was beating the bejesus out of me, day in and day out and day in and day out. And I wouldn't talk to him. He'd call on the secret phone that was only in my office, and I wouldn't answer it. And then he'd call Ann Devereaux, the late, great Ann Devereaux, and she'd call me, and she said, you have to return his calls. I hate to see grown men cry. All he does is cry. You have to. And said these bouquets of flowers would come, and then the coup de grace was he bought me a red Jeep Cherokee. You must have really been bad. I don't know what you were doing down here, but it was, that was a tough year. You guys did a great job, and it was a tumultuous campaign. Remember, I mean, think of this political history. Perot, he's in the race. He's out of the race. He's in the race. He's out of the race. President Bush flew a black helicopter into his daughter's wedding. Like, could you have had a weirder campaign cycle? And this one, and all the guys are saying, that's it? That's the guy you've almost wrecked your career for? He looks like a fish who swam too close to a nuclear reactor. I said, that's my man. There he is.
What's that? Somebody was saying that Perot said the reason that he was running because President Bush tried to mess up his daughter's wedding. They said, well, what could you do to mess up a Texas wedding? Show up sober in a sedan?
It was a bruising recovery. We weren't necessarily destined. I was pretty fed up with him by the time he came.
My grandmother told me when I was a little boy, I tell you, she said, man, Texans, she said, those are some weird people. She said, they fry steak and grill chicken. I said, oh, nobody can be that stupid. And I went to Texas. It's true, they fry steak and they grill. I mean, something called a chicken fried steak with white gravy. Good God, what is that?
Well, you guys are touching on something that I think this crowd would find very interesting. I know I find it interesting when you guys are pitted against each other, whether it's a campaign that you've worked on where you're opposing each other or whether it's just Republicans versus Democrats. Do you feel some pride towards the other one when they win or when they do something well,
No.
have that success?
No.
It just makes you mad, huh?
No.
I mean, I think when you were working in the White House, it was like, sometimes you see like a woman who's married to the football coach, but her son plays for the other team. I wanted you to do well, but not them. It's complicated. It's very complicated. But no, we're on. We believe what we believe, and but people come on. What they do? One of the things, and you know this, but when you're on television, you have 30 seconds, and they make a point, and then somebody will say, "Why didn't you say this? Why didn't you say that? Why didn't you say that?" Because I didn't have enough time, or I didn't think of it. Do you believe that happens sometimes? Yeah.
I'm very proud of him as a general, 50,000 feet. But I honestly, and we don't talk about this, I don't like to fight with my husband on TV. I know why I'm a conservative. My people on the south side of Chicago, they were immigrants, and they know why they came to this country, and I became a conservative. I say this somewhat facetiously, but it's true. When I started reading and thinking and paying taxes, like, where's this money going? And so we just have different views of the role of government in our lives. I'm not anti-government. I'm limited government. We don't have to get into all that. We just see this differently, but there are plenty of things we agree on, plenty of things that President Clinton did. I mean, I go for a Democrat who was a free trader right now, for sure. I'd like to see some more of that. And, we can agree on things that we disagree. What's the point? We can find other things to fight about. James had this great saying, like, if you're a plumber by day, you don't want to come home at night and fix your own toilet. And it's true. We don't want to go home and fight. So on Russell's show or John King, we love to, I just pretend like it's something else going on there. And then we have to go get a martini right after.
We never did another show. Tim's the only show we ever did. And I think we did that like 40 times or something. And when Tim died, I just knew, we did the Sunday after that and go back on there. And then CNN and John King, we have a lot of respect for. And that's the only show there's only two shows we've ever done. And, a lot of people have wanted us to sort of get in the ring and, you know what I mean, just sort of do the kind of thing. And the reason that we did Tim's show and the reason that we do John is they're both professional news people, and they're not interested in having a fight for the sake of having a fight. They're interested in eliciting people's opinion so that people that watch the show get to see what one side is saying and what the other side is saying. So it in one sense, it looks like, and I think just because, and we always kind of say, a little of us will go, people think that they see us on TV all the time, when in truth, we've only been on 2 television shows. And we've been very careful as a couple to only go on with people, well, in Tim's case, it was like probably his best, he and I, we went to all the ball, we had our tickets together at a sports radio show with his son, and he was very, very close to Mary. And John, we've always had a lot of affection and respect for. And I think that's one of the things you have to do in life. You have to pick your spots and be careful that you don't get hooked up with the wrong people. And by that, I don't just mean when you attain a certain level of notoriety, there are a lot of people that will use you and not have your interests at heart. And you have to be very careful about something like that sometimes. And I think we've been very fortunate that, yes, we do have opinions, yes, we have strong opinions, yes, we've argued about them, but if you think back, they've always been done on either meet the press or State of the Union. And that's good. I think people have a right, it's good for people to see both sides of the story or both sides of an issue when we disagree, but we've been very fortunate that we have we've had really professional news people who are really good at their job to be able to interview us, and we've been lucky for that.
You know, let me broaden that out, because in our political lifetimes, TV has gotten dumber. I mean, the Columbia School of Journalism has done the first correlation, and they continue to do this, of the information age distribution of information. And lo and behold, they found there's more outlets and fewer stories. And you can now go and have your own opinions reinforced, but if you really want to hear good debate, TV's it's a hard place to find it. I was just in New York. I published books, and somebody had just returned that morning from an event that President Clinton and President Bush 43 did, and they were, and this is New York City, this is like red diaper baby place, and they just loved it, because people who do what they do at that level and have had the burdens of office, or Senator Pryor or the governor, I mean, you're making really big decisions, and that the way they can discuss and debate and understand each other is not something that we commonly see. The closer the representatives are to the people, the more you see it. I suspect when you go to events that your local office holders are at, they're not as crazy as we appear to be. Not we, I mean that TV appears to be, but I feel particularly blessed to have had an opportunity to watch President Clinton and President Bush 41 and 43, or to watch James and Vice President Cheney talking, or talking to Bill Clinton myself. You know, when Bill Clinton was in the White House and everybody hated me, I had to go over there to these events, and I'd walk in and they'd all go, you know, it all spread out, and as only Bill Clinton could do, he'd make a beeline for me. And remember this, I forget what it was, in 1996, it was the re-elect. I walk in, everybody spreads apart, I'm standing there eating shrimp, and he makes a beeline to me and he says, "You tell Senator Dole, here's what he needs to do in his campaign." I said, "Excuse me, he's running against you." He goes, "No, he could have run a better campaign. Here's what he needs to do." He is always, like, he just loves all of it, and he could talk a pork chop. But, you know, it's really good to see the Bushes and the Clintons and the Cheneys and everybody respect each other and disagree, and we just don't see enough of it. I just want you to know that they really all do at some level.
This is something I've explored because I think the difference between information and knowledge. Okay, it's 1992. We had to get a pouch with, like, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, you name it. You go to the Capitol Hotel and you got the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And that was it. And they basically, CNN, we had on headquarters, we had this is CNN. Remember the John James, you know, and that was all. If you grew up when I did, or anybody else did, and you had 3 TV stations, and that was the news. Now you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere. You go anywhere you want. You get the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Memphis paper, the Little Rock paper, the Dallas, you name it, the Financial Times, to this, to that. You turn on, you got all these cable channels. You go on your computer, there's 6 gazillion websites. But ask yourself, do people know any more today than they did then? Is a conversation, is all of this explosion of knowledge, what's it done? I mean, when Arkansas quote was in the backwoods, and people didn't know nothing. William Fulbright was the senator. All right, but has because what happens is that if you are of a particular political persuasion, you don't have to read a word or look at anything that disagrees with you. You just can go and knowledge becomes, what I say is, it's like a drunk uses a lamppost. It's for support, not illumination. So we tend to, and what's happened is we fragment and we go to that which validates us as opposed to that which challenges us. But when we had less information, we actually, the really interesting thing, and I've noticed there's probably been some good research on it, I'm kind of fascinated by it, is the fact that information and knowledge, the connection between the two is not that great after a certain level. And I think we see that in a way. And people do find things out, and people vote and people change their opinions and that. But it's just kind of it is really a. And I was thinking of, like back in '92, like George Stephanopoulos' cell phone was bigger than George. Hold it up to here, big old thing was sitting there, it started cracking. It's pretty.
All right, we could go on for a lot longer, but I want to open it up for questions from the audience. So if you guys have some questions, I think we have some microphones set up around the room, some folks moving throughout the room. We haven't talked about Blanche Lincoln or Mike Huckabee or healthcare or anything else, so we got plenty of topics. I see someone in the middle of the room right here. They benefit from having their hand straight up. Mm-hmm.
Shout it out. We'll repeat it.
Pass it on up. Go ahead. Anything you want to.
Absolutely.
ClimateGate. We were talking about the Copenhagen, or as we say it now in Washington, Copenhagen, Pakistan. Go ahead, James. You're
I think that
warming person.
Yes, 948 peer-reviewed articles. Of course, there's global warming. Look at the chart now. What's going to happen? I suspect they're going to have some kind of agreement, because just for the simple fact that the president's going to go the last 2 days. Who knows? But it right now, in terms of here in the country, I think people are sort of more focused on the economy. I think the best thing we could do is to have a big initiative, and people really like the idea of having green jobs. But yeah, I don't doubt science. It's overwhelming. And the sooner we do something about it, the better. I mean, the ice cap ain't melting because it's cold. I mean, they're not taking the ships across the North Pole because it's freezing over.
The essence of science, whether or not you're a student of science, is data and replication. And we now know, despite the best efforts of the press not to cover this, that the consensus on at least anthropogenic warming was a result of the suppression, manipulation, management, and depletion and deletion of contrary data. Now, that's just what it is. And it's also true that the why is there probably is climate change, and there always has been climate change. And yes, they're all going to sign this, but sign whatever they're going to sign. And they all signed Kyoto, and none of them met their targets. and they will all sign again, and they won't meet their targets again. And it doesn't matter if we ride to work with solar panels on our back on a bicycle, if China and India don't do it. And there's a difference between pollution, and I've said this as a Christian, I say this as a conservative. We are to be good stewards of this earth. CO2, what we're breathing out, is not a pollutant. And stopping pollution is a very different thing from the reallocation and redistribution of billions and billions of dollars that we don't have on what's become a religion. And that's all you can say that it is. There is not a consensus science, and there is not consensus opinion. And we are the only country, we're the only country in the world that doesn't fully develop our own resources, and we could do it cleanly, we could do it safely, and we don't do it. Am I for solar and wind and all the rest of it? Yeah, we're good 5, 10, 20 years out. We can be clean and safe and smart in this kind of economy without pretending that cow flatulence is going to melt the ice caps, because that's exactly what you guys are talking about.
The one thing we know is the ice cap is melting. But that you can't stand, okay? Now, they tell you it's melting because it's getting colder. But have you ever seen ice melt because it gets colder? That's just observation as a human being. When I see ice melt, that tells me something's getting warmer. And if every credentialed scientist in the world says this is going on, it's probably a pretty good indication it's going on.
Can I say this again? Every credentialed scientist who says that depletes the data to the contrary.
Sure, so the whole thing is all rigged.
James, you know what?
So they're all rigging it
Do you
because
not
they're all
read the
part
papers?
of a
You
cabal.
only watch, you only validate your own opinion. You're
Again,
just doing what you
go
said.
find a credentialed scientist
All
that
right,
tell you
let's
that
just
gets
say this. Let's agree at least on this. Has there been in the history of the world climate change? Yes. Could there be sunspot activity that's affecting cloud coverage that is creating greenhouse gases? Yes. Could there be planetary trends, which there have been throughout the history of the world? Yes. All of a sudden, after all this time, volcanoes and everything else, it is man-made, and we all need to change our way of life, and in this particular time, destroy our economy because of this zealotry of suppressed science. Right. I mean, it's the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
Read the paper today and look at that chart.
The fake chart.
How about if we decide to let you guys agree to disagree on this subject?
Take another topic.
Let's take another topic right here in the middle. Not climate change, preferably.
I have kind of like a two-part question. If it's a healthcare question. If only 15 million Americans really need health care, why is the government trying to change the whole thing for all Americans? That's 85% already have health care that they agree with. And also, if the Senate got 60% Democrat majority, why are they having such a problem with health care? Why do they need the Republicans for it?
That's why they're having such a problem, because right now, as we sit here tonight, there are more than twice as many people unemployed as people that are uninsured. And those that are uninsured could have access to health care and could buy health care or could be eligible for a government program. They're just not signed up. Yet we're going to change that entire system. Those people could get health care. These people are looking for jobs, have been looking for jobs, can't be finding jobs right now. And we're, again, going to spend money that we don't have. Now, have Republicans done a good job? And don't even start and tell me Bush didn't do anything, because the Democrats stopped everything he was trying to do, and still we got some things through. But the Republicans had to do a better job, and they will in these midterms, talking about reforms that could really save money, like lifting the interstate so you can have competition between states. To have tort reform, 60%. People are smart, they get it. Fake lawsuits. I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to recover if there's maltreatment or malfeasance, but they get that there are other things that can be done short of some giant program, which the CBO says can only cut costs. It doesn't cut costs, it shifts costs to the taxpayer, the consumer, And even then, it only will work if the lawmakers do something in Washington they have never done, which is cut Medicare or tax these Cadillac plans, which the unions are against. So there's just never, that's why the Democrats are having problems with it. That's why your own senator is having a problem with it, and because they represent sensible people who are well informed.
James, I'll give you the last word on this question.
First of all, it's probably going to pass. Let me explain to you as best I can. In a free market system, if you're health insurance, you sell health insurance, it makes absolutely no sense for you to insure a 57-year-old diabetic. None. All right? If you're a 23-year-old and you're healthy, it makes no sense for you to buy health insurance. None. But the only way that you can insure the 55, the only way if you need health insurance, you can't get it. Now, that strikes some people as wrong. That strikes some people, me being one of them, is fundamentally unfair that somebody has got a pre-existing condition and they lost their health insurance and they can't get it. And what they're trying to do is bring, in order to make it worth for the insurance company to insure that person, they're trying to bring other people into the system. And that's what it's all about. And right now, as a country, we spend 65% more per capita on health care than any of the other 30 industrialized nations of the world. Now, somebody would rationally look at that and say, hey, let's see if we can figure this out, because the population is going to get older. And this is a pretty good, who knows? As we say, they're moving the chains. They're going to have a vote. And presidents have been trying to do this since Franklin Roosevelt. And there's a reason. And will it come out and will it be short here? And yeah, they could have done this, or they could have done that, or this and that. But it's going to end up being a pretty doggone good bill. Everybody won't get covered, but a lot of people will. And I think it'd be a good thing. But that's basically what's behind the whole deal.
I know we want to switch out, but going to this man's very smart question, and picking up on what James said, it is wrong for insurance companies to drop pre-existing condition or chronic conditions, and it's very costly. An exorbitant amount of our health care costs are wrapped up in chronic conditions. So the way you fix that legislatively is to have a high-risk pool. You treat that exact problem. The reason, so the 57-year-old can be part of that, can be a government fix. The reason young people they make a rational economic decision not to buy expensive insurance, the reason it's so expensive is because of the community rating stuff, where a young person who doesn't need to pay insurance rates that are based on treating everything from infertility to acne, they don't need that. They need a healthcare version of liability. Well, there's already so much government interference in this, and these plans all have community ratings. They're not going to reduce the cost. They're going to ration the care, and nobody ever talks about the reason our health care costs are so high. And it isn't just the defensive medicine. It's because we have great health care. And if you don't believe that, think about getting sick somewhere around the world. You'll come to appreciate one of the things that's happened in this whole health care debate is people really coming by double digits, 20% or more, appreciating the kind of health care that is here. Does it need reform? Yes. I mentioned some reforms. Could conservatives do a better point talking about? Yes. If something is going to pass, and the closer to the version of what the liberals want to pass, the worse it's going to be for you guys politically in 2010.
I want you to think of this. There's a billboard that says, Acme Health Insurance Company, we insure everybody regardless of their condition. Buy our stock. So insurance companies say, we're going to insure high-risk people and invest in us. No, of course not. That's the problem. That's it in a nutshell. And so you got all of these people that have lost their coverage, that are uninsured, that are getting older. And by the way, if you get sick in Switzerland, or you get sick in Germany, or you get sick in Canada, you'll be all right. You'll be all right, you know.
Which is why they travel here. Now, this is why we don't talk about this, because he doesn't listen to me. I never said that any insurance company should have a business model that says we're going to be the high-risk provider.
I didn't say that you said it.
You just said that.
No, I said what you. I didn't say you
Acme.
said it. I'm trying to say that the problem is that it doesn't make. I wouldn't buy a stock in an insurance company that says I'm going to insure sick people.
Okay, what I did say
Makes no sense.
is if you want government to cover problem areas, if there was a government pool for high-risk insurance or subsidizing high risk, then you take that problem right there, and everybody else, and you make the whole rest of the insurance industry competitive so young people can get it, so everybody can get coverage, so the private sector can be competitive and lower rates, so small businesses can pool and get an economy of scale like big businesses do. There's all kinds of reforms to cut costs, not shift costs, and maintain the quality. We haven't talked about them, and we will in 2010. It'll be a more robust debate.
And the health insurance companies have the great free market antitrust exemption. That say, oh no, you can't get rid of the antitrust exemption. That would be because if they had to compete like everybody else had to compete, they'd have the antitrust exemption. Okay, but why do you think they have the antitrust exemption? Because they got a lot of lobbyists.
Lift.
I don't want to shock anybody.
Lift. What did I start out with? If we lift cross-state competition, we lift the barriers to cross-state competition, the market will respond. I put your water over there.
All right, I think we found an.
I like this. So green, this is good water here to have in Arkansas, I'll tell you that.
Can you tell he has ADHD? Hey, there's a chicken.
I think we found another topic that you guys disagree with.
Right,
here.
Governor Tuck, it's good water.
All right, listen, we are running short on time. I know other people have questions, but we've gone a little bit over our allotted time because you guys didn't stick to the rules of the moderation here. Went back and forth. I'm going to introduce Stephanie Street to come up to our podium here. First of all, let's give Mary Madeline and James Carville a round of applause.